Our next intriguing panel discussion is exploring the Indian video content, the power of cultural diversity. Our moderator for today is Siddhant Mazumdar from Mediabrands Content Studio, who's going to be steering the conversation along with our esteemed panel of speakers. We've got Manika Mittal from Balancehero, we've got Samir Vora from Dailyhunt, and we've got Shilpi Kapoor from Airtel Payments Bank. So we're going to be requesting our panelists shortly to join us if they're around, our speakers. Please do us the honors. Let's get you in the red carpet welcome with a big, big round of applause. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's show some love to all our key speakers. And Siddhant, over to you to curate this conversation forward. Check.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Siddhant. I head Mediabrands Content Studio in India. This is basically the content arm of IPG Mediabrands. And thank you to IMI for giving us this opportunity to be a part of this panel. I think this topic is extremely close to my heart because I work in content. This is something I do on a daily basis. I'm dealing with brands and talent and platforms and so on and so forth. And I think the topic that they've given us is just so interesting and powerful, right? And it's also very varied. So while we talk about, let's say, online video content and the explosion and the creatorverse and how brands can tap into that, we have a lot of different things to unpack. So within the time that we have, we will try and do justice to such a large universe of talking points, right? And I think what I've also tried to do is, when we talk about online video content, I've also tried to add the point of diversity, right? Because a lot of what we do with brands and with creators, right? This conversation is extremely important, right? Because if in today's day and age, if you don't get that right, no matter what your brand story is, it's going to fall flat, right? So that's basically our topic. I'm going to jump straight into it. Should we do a round of introductions? Yes, please go.
Hi, I'm Manika. I'm representing Balancehero India. We are a digital lending platform, and this topic is very relevant, especially for the person like me, because I handle the communications and PR aspect of the business. And the content, what we create is for the diversified Janta, the Bharat. So, yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you. Thank you, Amir. Thank you, Siddhant.
Hi, everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Shilpi Kapoor. I head marketing for Airtel Payments Bank, and very thrilled to be here. A very important topic for us as well because I don't know how many of you are aware of the payments bank model. So payments banks came into being to provide inclusion and accessibility to the underprivileged and the underbanked. But the great part about diversity for us is that while we serve that segment, we're also a very urban, sophisticated brand. So I think for me, doing that balance in terms of communication and marketing and placing the products of the bank across the segments, who are, across segments of customers who are uber cool, and then again speaking to somebody in a tier 6, 7 village. So I think that's the balance that we strike. So thrilled to be here and to be sharing my perspective.
Super cool. Hi, my name is Samir Vora. I'm the CMO at Vora. We run two large brands, Dailyhunt, and which is an aggregator platform, news. But more importantly, short video, which I think is something that kind of ties all the conversations here together. Should be interesting because for us at Vora, I think the thesis is Bharat, which means, just to kind of give you a bit of context, before Bharat was cool in the sense, language and vernacular was in, the founder, who himself comes from small town India, saw this opportunity, and that's how we built this business. And it's very interesting because his roots lie in a lot of your domains. Like, for example, he's ex-Airtel, and more importantly, started from a VAS and SMS background very quickly to understand that how it's not possible to basically reach and target rural India at that point in time. Buzzwords such as tier 3, 4, 5, etc. didn't exist. But yeah, that's our thesis. And the interesting thing here is, when I joined Dailyhunt per se in 2018, my previous stints were in Star Sports and Star Plus respectively. So I get a sense of where you guys are coming from this. But what's interesting for us is, over the last 5 years, the way we built business out is that the only thing that we basically stand for, the thing that, a string of pearls that basically is common throughout our business is Bharat and vernacular. So hopefully that should kind of tap into the rich vein of diversity as well.
Awesome. I mean, it's not every day that you have such a wonderful panel with me. I hope I get a lot of insights. I'm sure I will. And I hope a lot of you also get a wonderful set of insights to bank on and learn from and grow with. So I'm going to go straight into my first question, and this is for you, Samir. I think, the background that you have right now is actually very apt for my first question. So I'm sure you have a strong understanding, right, of what is of the cultural nuances, right, that are helping Indian creators from all over the country actually reach far and wide, right? You have local creators who are perhaps popular in metros, who are perhaps popular in distant countries as well. What are these cultural nuances that are driving this kind of explosion, right, and are enabling these people to perhaps envision themselves as global creators?
So I could give you a short answer, I could give you a long answer. Let me give you the short answer first. How many people know Gotilo right now? Okay. I think broadly everybody should. So think of it, it's a song in Gujarati. I'm a Guju, so very proud of that as well. But basically, this is a song that's done like a world over, a couple of billion, if not 5 billion, 6 billion, last I had checked. Now a global case study with Coke. And it came from one song from Coke, which basically as a thought ran saying, let me basically get in touch with my people. They sell carbonated drinks, and here they are delving into music. Okay, fair enough. Pepsi's given us the template, music, movies, cricket, but Coke took it ahead, which means they said, let me now do this in Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, Marathi, and all of that. And that's where I think your answer lies. So that's a short word answer, which tells you that basically the minute you tap into a rich cultural vein, which is vernacular, in our particular case, it automatically levels. Now, honestly, I've seen trillions of comments around it that they don't understand what the language is. But does it help stop you from grooving to it? Does it stop you from making a reel about it? Have you not done it in Dandiya Ras? All of that and more. So that's the short answer. Honestly, the long answer is a little more nuanced, as you rightly said. For us, it's amazing where the insights are coming from. So I'll give you an example. In our good old FMCG days, consumers used to have dincharya, which means what do they get up in the morning and what do they do at the end of the day. We're seeing a similar pattern in a short video universe, which means we actually see devotional content up front. We actually see the devotional content to WhatsApp sharing module. We are seeing, obviously, music and local language content be the genesis of everything that they're expressing themselves on. But now the counterpoint. All of us have actually seen short video with mute as well, with Chinese content as well. So the minute it's less than 15 seconds, all boundaries get blurred. You're equally comfortable, you're watching it on mute in Tamil, as long as, at a human level, you connect with the humor, the insight, the music. So for us, that's the larger thesis. But honestly, sharply focusing on what are the cultural nuances, it's actually music. It's local language vernacular, expressing yourself in that. And then there are these really crazy genres, such as devotional, such as exercise, such as food. Now, it's amazing what's happening to tier 2, tier 3 India and downwards. And we see this pie shaping, reshaping every month, depending what's factually in at that point in time, what's working. So for example, I can tell you today that the minute Pushpa launches, okay, it'll be crazy. Okay, it'll be crazy. Yeah. It'll be crazy. So again, a cultural nuance. So it's all the attributes are there for it to go crazy. And if David Warner can do it, then hell yes, everybody else can do it.
Of course.
That's wonderful. And I think it's a very holistic answer because you gave a short and a long answer. And to the rest of the panel, if you feel like doing the same, please go ahead. No problem. Right? So my next question is to Shilpi. I think, we are, like you were mentioning, we are seeing a lot of diversity in culture, right, in various shapes and forms. In representation, obviously, right, in gender and whatever, where you're from, obviously, that again is a big talking point. What are the other types of diversity, right, perhaps that you would like to see more of, or something that you're actually quite inspired by today in content?
Yeah, so I think when you talk about diversity, what I think, I would agree with what Samir is saying, that India, I think culturally we're very rich, right? And after every, say, 500 kilometers, the dialect changes. And like you were mentioning, the Gotilo song is like, you've got everybody making reels around it. And of course, it was an initiative started by Coke. But India is such a rich cultural heritage that we need to be very sensitive towards it. And also, I think what happens typically for brands is that while we are all for, really supporting causes, what we don't do in this whole commercial model, what we, what skips the mind is typically that how do you really connect at a human level with the person? And how is it that you really, touch that human chord? Because we always talk like brands will say that, okay, hey, this is good about me. You get a bunch of influencers to do content for you. But are you really connecting with that person, at an emotional level as well? So I think inclusion from that standpoint is not just gender inclusion or race or color and all that. I think it's inclusion for us, again, for urban as well as speaking to, like I said, the rural audience. I don't, when I speak or when I create content, I don't want somebody, a woman sitting who's opening a bank account who does not get access to the nationalized banks or whatever, to feel that this is an alienated brand for me because Airtel Payments Bank has got this uber cool looking people with, very, very fancy looking clothes, etc. So as a brand, for me to really be very sensitive to the culture of the country and the people that I'm speaking to, while not diluting what I am for the urban customer. So for me, that whole, 360 from speaking to somebody who's sitting right there in, in Mumbai to somebody who's sitting at, where you barely get electricity, right? So I think for us, it's very important to think of those nuances and then create content. So like you were also mentioning, we've got these people who we call key opinion leaders, where we also empower women to really become our banking correspondents because they trust women. So if I have a woman key influencer who's going to create this campaign, and we're not doing, a gender bashing or saying that, okay, but you're just looking at an empowering role, and you have these women who are really leading the change for us. So I think that's how I see this.
Awesome. Before I move to Manika, I'm just going to ask you another question. I think one of the points that you mentioned was related to purpose, right? A lot of the things that you have to do is about how are you enabling a certain community or a certain individual, and one has to be sensitive when one is doing that. So my question to you is in that space. Firstly, how do you go about selecting a space, right, that you want to put your money behind, right? And when doing so, do you think a brand can really change things for the better? And if so, how?
So I think that's a wonderful question. And while we were having a brief chat before this, I just said that how I feel very strongly about certain causes. And here I'll just quote a classic example of L'Oreal, which is a beauty brand, which I think all of us would be aware of, which is the I'm Worth It campaign, which they did with Kate Winslet. Now imagine in today's day and age where even while taking a selfie, we want to put in a filter to make ourselves look good, to change the color of our skin, make ourselves thinner, etc., to be Insta-worthy is how the generation calls it. So in today's day and age, when we aspire to look perfect, 10 on 10 with all of that, doing and standing for a purpose, which is really telling people, and then again, it's not a gender-sensitive thing, but that I'm worth it, in spite of whatever color, race, shape, size, form you are, you're worth it. And coming from a brand which actually endorses and which is actually selling products which are really made to enhance your looks. And this Kate Winslet campaign that I refer to is somebody who walks the red carpet day in and day out, is speaking to the audience and saying that, just removing all her makeup layer by layer and saying that in this raw form, I still feel that I'm worth it. So I think that's a very powerful statement to make, and it's not endorsing any specific product. And it is not even, and it's standing for a cause, right? And it is absolutely not something which is very, very topical. This is something which is across and which is relevant across. How do you really speak to women and tell them that you're worth it in spite of everything, all odds, all that you do? And I think those kind of campaigns, and that's how brands really resonate across, when they stand for a purpose which is very close to people. Like I said in the beginning, you connect to the consumer and you connect to the heart of the consumer. So I think that sensitivity is something that brands need to include.
As a follow-up question to just what you said, what role do content creators play in this? When you established a brand purpose and you're making content with it, what is the role a content creator, like let's say me or anyone in the audience, what role can they play?
Sure. So I think, again, like I said in the beginning as well, that right now, all of us are spending at least 7 to 8 hours on our phones. We are following people on Instagram, we're looking at content in a minute, and what we typically say is the snackable content. How influencers can play a key role is how do you really create content which is not just about, selling a particular product? How do you seamlessly integrate? And then I think when we kind of look at the list of influencers who can do campaigns for us, you really just go back and do a deep dive in terms of personality types also. Is it just a generic person who's got 5-6 million followers, just get them on board and try and tell them to create content? Or does that person as a personality resonate with your brand? I think that's a key thing that I kind of look at when I'm creating, getting influencers or creating a digital campaign, is doing a quick check and maybe, if possible, doing a quick video call and understanding the personality type. I don't want somebody who's extremely flamboyant and really out there, etc., speaking to my TG, because my TG I'm speaking to is somebody who's keeping money in my account. So I can't have a person coming out of a Rolls Royce and saying, hey, why don't you open an Airtel Payments bank account? So I think those things are very sensitive. Instead of just going out there to get views, one should look at connecting, and long-term association or brand loyalty is how I would select my content creator.
Awesome. I think, even though we do put our checks and balances when we're working with talent, right? A lot of times there could be unseen or circumstances that you cannot foresee that actually derail the campaign. So hence, Manika, my next question is to you, right? You're obviously a leader in PR and, in CopCom, right? And you'll have a strong view on crafting safe brand comms, right? So in this space, when you're trying to ensure cultural conversations and diversity, how do you ensure that the right level of sensitivity is maintained in your own comms as well?
Yeah, so thank you, Siddhant, for asking this question. Typically, the brand which I represent is into digital space. It's an app, right? And it's a fintech. We cover 95% pin codes, but still there's no human touch point. Everything is digital. So app talks to the people. In this case, so it's very important. So when you are taking any campaign or any content or any communications to this vast audience, especially the audience which is, again, the Bharat, you have to be very sensitive. You have to be very mindful in how they would perceive it. So I always go by the framework, right? So in our case, I always go by 3 C's, how I put it. So first C being the, 3 R's, sorry. The first R being the representation, right? For whom you are creating that, right? The representation has to be right. And the representation comes with the user cohort, right? So the data, because it's a fintech, right? The data talks to you. Data is the fodder. So the right representation has to be there, and that representation has to be backed by the research, right? Because research would provide you the insights, much needed insights. And finally, the recognition. The recognition, because what recognition would do, it will definitely work on the nuances, give the contours, and however also give you the specifics. So thus, the perils and pitfalls, it covers that. So the right recognition, research, and representation all together would ensure that what you are creating is definitely for the vaster audience.
And in the case of, let's say, even with the right intentions, right? Like I was saying, sometimes we do all of this, right? And so even some of the best brands in the country must have had this checks and balances. They've done that and they've created a great campaign. But because of some reason, something has gone wrong. Like a case in point, let's say, is a lot of the campaign that Tanishq does, for instance, right? Like they have great cultural conversations, but for some reasons, the thing can derail. And if something like this happens, how should a brand handle the fallout, right? It could be because of the message itself, or it could also be, let's say, because of the talent that you've chosen to work with.
Okay. So, so what is the objective? It's like the PR in me will talk now. So what is the objective, even if it's a campaign which is successful or unsuccessful? It gets the brand recognition and the talking. Like we are just talking about Tanishq, though we are specifying the campaign which might have failed, right? Ekatvam you're talking about, right? So it did the work. Even if it's on a good side or bad side, it had everyone talking and giving Tanishq its due branding So it's never a negative or positive, right? Branding is branding. So in that case, yeah, maybe from the brand aspect, it's good, it's well covered, unless there's some social media talking happening. For consumer end, yeah, yeah, definitely at times it can dampens the loyalty. It can, some people really strongly feel about the ethnicity, right? They strongly feel about how they are represented, especially the community, because that's their identity, you know, and identity, if not put together right, it hurts, right? So for sure on the consumer side, which is why the brands have to be oversensitive, especially when covering this vast diaspora. But for the brand aspect, I would say it just does the purpose.
I would love to quote you to my clients. So a lot of them, when we go back to them with cultural messages, they're like, no, this is too scary, right? So the point that you made about all publicity is good publicity, I'm going to just quote you. Please don't mind. Samir, I'm going to come back to you, right? We are seeing creators work for a lot of brands, right? You have one creator who perhaps in the space of a month will do 4 collabs, right? Maybe more, right? And while yes, the creatorverse is exploding, in many of the segments, right, there are only, let's say, like top 10 creators who matter to the brands, right? So in this case, right, how do you ensure that the work that you do with the creator stays true to the brand and is perhaps, you know, recognizing, oh, this was done by an Airtel or by any other brand? So how does that attribution succeed fully?
So actually, you know, I've been both. So I've been on this side right now with short video, but I've also been a client, right? So honestly, hand to God, guilty as charged, saying, because I've seen the last trending viral video, I also want the same person. But today, because we're wiser we're on the other side of it, it's a very simple construct. Shilpi, it's also kind of taps into something you were saying. So today, if I were to advise Shilpi, for example, with her own next new campaign, I would say classic, you know, principles that we do for each marketing kind of apply. You may want a popular face, but you don't lead everything on the popular face, which means eventually the reach of that person matters, but authenticity of the person matters. To your point, if I've seen the same person do 4 collabs, it's already distilled in my mind, subconsciously or consciously, this is a paid collab. So the idea here is to find that hidden gem. That's where the regional side of it, because we deal with these many people, okay, because, like, I'll give you an example, just a crazy example, okay, look it up on Instagram or Josh. There's a guy called Hydroman. You know what his specialty is? He does videos underwater, and he dances underwater. Okay, now where would you get content like this? Now your argument could be, what's its relationship to Airtel? I understand that. So hence not selected. But think of the variation and the ability that is available in this market. And that's where I think a partner like us or a well-rounded agency who understands your brand will look at it. That's one. Secondly, we also have to manage clients and bosses. So we always lead with a multi-tiered approach, which means there's a big face, a KOL, then you go macro, then you go micro, nano, etc. The authenticity will come from the tail end of the campaign. The reach will come from the top end of the campaign. So I think that's the yardstick that you really need to look at. Eventually, this will translate into the metrics that Shilpi is looking for, because this is how she delivers authenticity. The big guy will give her the reach because that's the conversation and that's brand speak. But the minute she puts it into the to the nano, micro, you know, that level, that's when the authenticity of the person actually feeling, saying, you know what, I have done this account, I think you should do it too. And suddenly it does not matter whether he's rich, poor, that context starts developing. And that's the genuine, authentic campaign. And for this also, time is important. I think the other thing that clients want to do is they think of this as a factory, which means you play a button and, you know, content gets spewed at the other end. The minute you do that, it's possible, but then you lose relevance. Authenticity goes out of the window. And more importantly, as clients, we want everybody to make our ads. The minute we do that, it's a short recipe for disaster. Which means, and I'll quote something, which is a very interesting thing. So I was ex-Star Sports. 2011, India won the World Cup. We met Paddy Upton, Virendra Sehwag, everybody in the same room. So we said, you know, what's the secret of success? They told us that, look, you know, when Virendra Sehwag started to bat, the reason he came to the team as Virendra Sehwag is because he does not play like Rahul Dravid. And Rahul Dravid in the team is because he does not play like Virendra Sehwag. So please don't ask them to do something that they're not comfortable with. You think that they're hoity-toity. They're not hoity-toity. They're only thinking because they know their audience the best. You have to trust them to do that marriage. I think that's the tricky one that marketeers, you have to take the leap. Honestly, I failed first time as well. Okay, I also struggle with it. But that's where I think a partner like Josh helps, your agency partners help, and your conviction, as you said, Shilpi, of doing that phone call. You know, very few clients do that. Okay, it's very, very important to go down that rabbit hole to see what's happening with that. So that kind of builds the context and the nuance for campaigns.
I think that's absolutely true because every time we also talk to talent, right? Whenever we have managed to create a personal connect, right? No matter how big they are, they give you more. They're invested in your success because they feel that we are invested in their success, and we're not just any other brand just coming and giving money and saying, okay, you make this and then you go away.
Again, I have tons of sports quotes, so I'll give you this one. So I met Mahendra Singh Dhoni again back in 2011, and I've met him in multiple stages of my career. So once he asked me, saying, I asked him, this is the time when Ajita Mendes, for any cricket buffs, he was playing really well. So I asked him, Dhoni bhai, do you know how he plays? बोलते नहीं यार, वो मुरली ने बोला है, ऐसे bowlers भी आ रहे हैं. So he just wanted to learn. Then the conversation drifted. So I asked him, Dhoni bhai, John or Bipasha? He said John. Okay, as friends. And eventually I asked him, saying, how much money have you made? So he puts a hand around my shoulder and said, Samir, 100 crore के बाद आदमी गिनना छोड़ देता है. Okay, the point I was trying to make is, here is a person I've met 15 minutes ago. Look at the way his ability to translate is. The way he speaks to you, he makes you believe. Yeah. He makes you feel that I know him for 10 years. I've had 3 successive conversations with him, each more brilliant than the other. But the way the man treats me makes me feel so special that I will bend backwards for him when the time comes. And that's the power of relationship. And you don't do it for everybody. That's also important, right? Somewhere you get the feel that this is just a transaction. But the person, the way he speaks to you, that's eventually the trick.
Yeah, I think Samir is more of he's been original.
He's super authentic. He's super authentic. So, follow up. I met him 5 years later. Okay. So, as for a marketing guy, this is what he told me. So, I was doing mutual funds at that point in time. So, there was a famous Dainik Bhaskar or Jagran campaign, जिसके अंदर वो बोलता है, where the campaign line is जिद मत करो. Okay. जिद मत करो. And how as parents we've been told, beta जिद मत करो, because जिद is always associated with a negative thing. He said, Samir, ऐसा नहीं है. तेरे धंधे में, and I'm a marketing guy, he's the athlete. He's saying, Samir, तेरे धंधे में risk is the unnecessary word. Okay? People associate risk as negative. You have to reposition risk. This is Mahendra Singh Dhoni telling me in 2011. You have to reposition risk. Okay? And that's how he said, you have to reposition risk. Don't ever be worried about it and pitch it in the right way and you'll do well. So it's just the clarity of thought the gentleman has and the ability to translate it. And as you very rightly said, he's super authentic 100% of the time. You never feel that he has a day off, and that's the way he is. It's not a pretense, it's not an act, it's the way he is.
Samir, I think, the more I talk to you, I'm getting a sense that, you have a great understanding of who's out there, right, and creating good content. So my next question to you is, in the next few years, where do you see the next wave of authentic and novel content creators coming from? Regional, yes, I get, right? But even within there, what are the unique genres, let's say, or topics that perhaps you see people likely to come?
So I'll give you some real controversial ones. Hold me for it, okay?
Yeah.
So the first one as a language I'm betting on is Bhojpuri. It's going to rock the world. It's doing so well. If any sports guys are there, Jio or Star, they will back me up on this. The Bhojpuri content piece is just rocking right now. People who have a play in that area should really consider it. That's one. In terms of interest categories, I'll tell you amazing ones again. Devotional for young people. It's super counterintuitive, but that's what I'm seeing. Yeah. Okay. Again, another controversial one. Astrology. Okay. So, you know what? I came from, similar corporate background before I landed into Star Plus. Okay. And when I looked at Star Plus and I spent 6 months on the road before I went back, and I came back with a completely refreshed understanding of what this country is. Okay. So if you really want to, okay, there is a very crude way of summarizing India, which I can't say on a public forum, but I'll do it in a this thing. But the most interesting part is that India is not the top 20 metros. Okay. The minute you, for a moment, keep that monetization lens aside, and look at the larger macro narrative of what this country is. What happens from city number 21 to city number or to village number 40,000? It's a completely different world. It changes every 100 kilometers from food, language, mental attitudes, etc. Also, lots of misconceptions exist about India. For example, some of them perpetrated by me as well, which is, Indian women are bichar abla nari. Okay, that's not the case at all. You please go to any small town in India. They are the one driving a scooty. They are the one taking kids to classes.
Yes, 100%.
There is no fight between the mother and the mother-in-law. All of this is 20 years ago. Okay, like historically, when I speak to people, I tell them that I came from financial services, right? Historically, the purview of the man of the house. I said, have you ever gone to any small town in India and see where women, keep their money? Okay, they have no bloody clue. So, as you very correctly said, you need to go down. And the best way, a very nice surrogate of knowing what the pulse of the country is content. Yes. And that's how I get a bird's eye view. So, as they say, advertising is the nation's culture. Okay, so that's what we are saying. And to your point, Manika, you were saying, so one of my agencies, obviously the agency for Titan as well, and I'm privy to what happens. The only time brands back off is when there's a serious risk to the larger reputation. Okay, the Tatas know that it was the right thing to do. Right. But nobody is okay if people are going to come and damage stores. Put their physical employees' health and well-being up for question. So, and I was there in that room. I know the struggle. And I'm the client, right? Nobody put a kanpatti with banduk and said you have to buy it. So I have bought it. I'm not going to back down. But sometimes there are situations which are out of hand, which force you to do things like that. And this is the Tatas. You can't bully them. But yet, if something like that happens, you must acknowledge that there are forces greater than them as well, which kind of ask you to do what is the correct thing to do. And I think very right for them to back off when the minute it comes to physical safety of the employees, because they're answerable. Okay, then it's no longer about brand.
Right. It's about the bigger responsibility there, right?
I want to build on one of the points that you mentioned, and my question is to you, Shilpi. Like you said, we're seeing a wave of amazing creators, right? Original creators from all over in different shapes and sizes. We also see that brands today, right, are very open to collaborating in the true sense, right? With a known face. You'll see collabs between an athlete and an apparel brand, let's say, right? Given your brand, right? And given the fact that we are seeing so many explosions of content creators, what kind of collaborations would you foresee in your space between your brand and such creators, and how would that manifest?
Sure. So like I said, what's important for us again is the consumer connect, which is the key of, which is why, I kind of go out there and get content creators to meet us and first understand what is a brand personality, what does the brand stand for, what do I do as a bank, and like I said, for in the beginning of my conversation, that many of us are not aware of the nuances of payments bank and why they came into being, etc., all of that. So instead of just looking at content creators which are just talking about digital payments, etc., we are looking at more content creators which are speaking to people who can relate to them, right? So like he was mentioning, I have a model of women banking correspondents because, like in our previous panel, it was being mentioned that women are driving the change for the economy and women trust other women more, right? So I would might as well go to another, typically in villages and tier 5, 6 onwards, they know that, okay, this is the person, she's a lady, I'm just going to, take her help to open a bank account, which is very discreet, and she'll enable me to kind of do my payments, etc. So that trust is huge. And there I look at people, who speak to them in their language. They dress the way that those people would dress. It's again not something which is, and if I want to have a face to the brand, I would also, even if it's a celeb, I would want to really get an endorsement from a celebrity who comes from a background who's similar background, who's seen those struggles, right? When he was just, Samir was mentioning about Dhoni. So all of us know, like Dhoni belongs to this real small town, and with all the struggles, etc., he made it big. It was not given to him on a platter, right? So people like that is the audience that the Indian consumer or the consumers worldwide are able to relate to, because I think at least in our country, 90% of the people are not so privileged to get everything to them on a platter, be it anything, education, banking, any other service. So I think that becomes very important, that who is it that you kind of really take, or the face of the brand, who really speaks to your audience and again connects with them. So like a Dhoni cuts across. Like, while Samir can relate to him, I think somebody staying in Jamshedpur can also like...
I'll give you another interesting one.
Yeah.
Okay. Last story from me. So there's this boy called Mr. Faizu. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay, if anybody knows him, he's one of the, he's the Salman Khan of short video. Okay, he's done a ton of work, movies, serial, Khatron Ke Khiladi, all of that. You know what was his background? He was a jeans salesman from Linking Road.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, now that's a story. Okay, if he gets on live today, in 15 minutes from today, I call Faizu and saying live now, there'll be people from Pakistan to Bangladesh.
That's true.
Okay, now that's the power of the guy.
Absolutely.
And again, he's authentic, So he will do what he does. From a person who used to sell jeans on Linking Road to a guy who drives a Range Rover, he's not changed. His clothes may have changed, but his basic tonality still remains the same. Okay, and hence he does what he does.
Yeah.
So otherwise, if imagine, and if you see some of his earliest work, it's borderline hilarious, but it's so heartwarming. And he, in typical Bombay fight, it's him and his boys, Tapuri. It's that kind of work.
Yeah.
But it's super hilarious. He's super hilarious. He really connects to you as a, genuine Mumbai boy. And today his work is completely different, but has not lost his charm.
Yeah.
So I think that's, so his Instagram/Josh following would have quadrupled or, 10x'd in the last 5 years, but he's still the same boy that he
Yeah.
was.
So I think authenticity in our country is something which is now rare to find, because like I mentioned that it's all about being Insta-worthy and being uber cool and doing all of that. But I think at the heart of it, everybody wants to see stories of inspiration where they can relate and say, if he could do it, I could do it too. So I think that's what, as a brand, instead of just, jumping on some, topical bandwagon, okay, these are a couple of key trends, let's just do them. I think if you stand for something, the way that the consumer can relate to you, come back to you, and become your brand advocate, I think that for me, as a marketer, is my key. Like, how do I just not make a customer, but how do I make him or her my brand advocate? How is it that I create content or give the kind of service or, have the kind of influencers which actually tell a story that my consumer can relate to? So I think that's what I'd like to say on this.
My last question is to Manika, and after that I actually have what I call a selfish question, my vested interests. We'll come to that. Your tax of doing. Yes, right. I think, in today's day and age, you cannot have a conversation on content without talking about AI, right? It's not possible, right? Because it is the big buzzword for the year. So keeping that in mind, what role do you see AI and tech play in propagating content or culture forward? And how can that be used in a better way?
So, like you said, Siddhant, AI is like an AK-47. It's just revolutionized the way everything like tech happens, right? So, yeah. So when we talk about AI in terms of how it can enhance the content and diversity, first we should also understand what exactly, like everyone covered, part of Shilpi covered, Samir covered. Diversity has broadly be categorized into two parts, right? One is inherited diversity, which comes from your linguistic background, ethnicity, gender.
Yeah.
Then is acquired. So when I talk about acquired diversity, it is broadly be about your educational background, your skill set, your profession, right? So when you are catering to these aspects, right? So one size doesn't fit it all. Like it dampens the inclusivity, right? It has to be holistic. What you create, what you bring to the table, it should be holistic. So even a person, if I'm working on a campaign where I'm catering to the Bengali audience, perhaps, maybe I will be able to cater to the not the acquired one, but the inherited one. For me to be acquired one, it should be data driven. This is where AI plays a role, right? AI will help in scalability, affordability, and taking it to the next level. However, AI again has the downside of it as well, because it's driven by mostly data which is mostly retrospective, not perspective, right? So it's basically what has been fed, what has been given to the feed, and that's how it comes to the picture. Like Deepti was giving an example of how women are empowered, how they are taking it to the next level. Similarly, in our industry, in my area of work, I've seen whatever predictive analysis we do, basis the data we have already got, if we go by that, UPI would not be today what it is, right? Because UPI has changed the landscape completely. So what if a brand would only go by what the predictive analysis through AI would have done? It would not have considered women specifically in that segment of creating content, right? So yeah, AI is a game changer. Definitely marketers are harping on it, but there are always two sides of the game. So yes, I would rest it there.
So before I get into my selfish question, do you think, and this is for all of you, do you think AI can help democratize who's in your content as well? Sorry?
Siddhant, apologies, but we're
Oh,
really...
I'm so sorry, we got carried away. Right, so I think I'll park my selfish question and maybe we can ask the audience.
Yeah, maybe we can go
Sure,
for one
sure.
question. Yeah, to the lady out here in the black, can we get a mic passed to her? Or if you'd just like to stand up and ask your question? Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Sharp answer from me. I think AI is still more on the operational side of it for us. So let's say, I think Shaumin was there, he would attest to it that if tomorrow Flipkart needs to sell across 30,000 pin codes, one fridge, the price keeps changing. It's not possible to create 30,000 ads. But a product like AdGreets will create 30,000 variations of it and push it onto onto a Dailyhunt or a programmatic piece for it to get correctly displayed there. So AI operations, yes. AI creatives, still no. Okay? And we have a house view on what we consider AI, just to kind of answer that. We believe content is the base, AI is the pillar. The house cannot exist without that. Imagine an app where, or imagine a content piece where there is, or imagine an app where create content is there, but there is no AI powering the algo. Then you're getting the same thing over and over again. And imagine the reverse, where it's got the world's best algo, but no content. So it doesn't exist in isolation. That's the reason. It's a house view, which is the base is always content. It basically is mounted. I mean, the ceiling is basically mounted on the pillars of AI. And we, as somebody who are deeply invested in AI purely because our algos are the only reason. We don't create any content on Dailyhunt. And on Josh, we create content which is powered by AI. So we have a very strong house view on it. But we don't feel that, one trumps the other in any format. Go to you.
So I have a slightly different answer. Obviously, what Samir said is absolutely spot on. My point of view comes from the content and creative side of things, right? I think AI can play a big role in creating very strong consumer delight. A good example is our recent campaign that we've done for ITC Dark Fantasy with Shah Rukh Khan. I don't know whether you guys have seen it. That's something that we've done where you put your own face in the ad, right? And suddenly you have Shah Rukh Khan who's swooning over you, he's pampering you, and people went mad. They went mad. What we realized later is that what it has actually enabled us to do is, it is just the ad. People are now working extra hard to watch the ad, engage with the ad, put themselves in the ad, and then go to 5 other people saying, look, Shah Rukh Khan ke saath mein ad mein. Right? So that we felt was a game changer for us. And the results I think are insane. We aimed for around 30,000 odd people, very conservative number, for around 3 to 4 weeks. We got 1 lakh people on day one. Everything crashed. That is the power of Shah Rukh. That is the power of the brand and also the power of AI because nobody expected, any Tom, Dick and Harry to suddenly share screen space with such a big star, right? And the more these examples propagate, I think the more newer translations and manifestations of this tech will come forward. And that's why it's so exciting because we don't know where the next one is going to come from and what it will look and sound like. We have absolutely no clue, right? It's all up to, everyone in this room
It's a
to
great
innovate.
example of creativity and and the tech working together.
Absolutely. I know the conversations can continue, and it's a topic which could go on, and there could be an entire summit dedicated to just this one topic. But we'd really like to humbly thank all our panelists. May we please request you to stand forward, ladies and gentlemen. A warm round of applause. What a great discussion this has been. Of course, they spoke about how you seamlessly integrate your content with purpose, maintaining the right level of sensitivity around the cultural nuances, and of course, authenticity. May we request you to please stay on the stage and maybe have the team to kindly help us with a token of appreciation to all our panelists. Firstly, thank you so much, Siddhant. Thank you for joining us. And may we request you to take the token of appreciation from our side. Thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you, Manika. Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Shilpi. And thank you for sharing your anecdotes of wisdom today. Thank you once again.